Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the 7th year of BIM's Business of Seafood, our annual look at the seafood sector and the performance of the sector over the last few years. The way that the webinar is going to work this morning is we will have an opening address from the Minister for Agriculture, Food and Marine, Ciaran McConalogue. That will be followed by an overview from our Chief Executive, Bocquel. And then we will have a short panel discussion with three industry speakers, Ciaran Doherty from the Áine Fishing Company, Elsa Kelly from Wild Atlantic Oysters, and Colm Lynch from Aquamonitrix. So we hope you find the webinar informative this morning, and I'll pass over now to the Minister to give the opening address. Thank you.
Thank you for that introduction, Dominic, and let me add by welcoming everyone here this morning to the launch of BIM's Business of Seafood report. This report demonstrates the resilience of the seafood sector and highlights its importance not only to Ireland's coastal communities but across the Irish economy as a whole. This report continues to be an important reference document which is frequently quoted and indeed used by a broad spectrum of people across industry, government as well as wider society. Undoubtedly, 2022 has been another challenging year for all, with the impacts of the conflict in Ukraine coming so soon after Brexit and the COVID pandemic. All parts of the sector have been impacted, and thankfully there has been some respite as prices have stabilised for the time being. Along with my officials, I'm closely monitoring the situation as the energy markets remain turbulent. Yet despite these challenges, I note from the report that the sector has continued to grow in 2022, with the value of the sector rising to €1.3 billion, a 4% growth in GDP from 2021. While volumes produced and exported are down, higher prices for seafood both domestically and abroad have offset the lower volumes of seafood available. The report also highlights the significant increase in government investment into the sector, with various schemes under the Brexit Adjustment Reserve coming on stream. The Brexit Adjustment Reserve Fund aims to provide financial support to offset the impacts of Brexit on sectors most affected. Under the bar, a €268 million package has been provided to date to the seafood sector post-Brexit. The Brexit Adjustment Reserve has enabled the implementation of the Seafood Task Force recommendations and supported one of the most significant capital investment opportunities for the industry, namely the processing capital and aquaculture growth schemes. These schemes have provided scope for the sector to invest in its processing and in its value-added capacity, and this will enable growth. I note from Bord Iascaigh Mhara that capacity of 6,700 gross tonnes, worth around €63 million, has been voluntarily withdrawn under the voluntary decommissioning scheme. While I understand that the decision to decommission is a very difficult one for vessel owners, the rebalancing of the fleet with the available quotas will help put the sector on a firmer financial footing and deliver a more sustainable future for the industry. Returning to the report, I note that the ports of Roslynville, Clogherhead and Greencastle all saw significant increases in the value of landings in 2022, reflecting the high prices for prawns in particular. This is a welcome boost for these ports, which are important in bringing employment to local communities and also in maintaining the social fabric of our communities which are served by them. On the subject of jobs, the report shows that the seafood industry remains a key source of employment in coastal regions across the country, with over 15,300 employed in the sector. 14 in every 100 adults are employed in the seafood industry now, in Donegal, for example, alone. Sustaining these jobs in coastal communities throughout Ireland and ensuring a vibrant seafood sector remains a really key priority for me. I read with interest the chapter on BIM's carbon footprint study. It is positive to see that seafood is such a low carbon emitting sector, which potentially gives Irish seafood a competitive advantage in the marketplace. Of course, further improvements can be made to further reduce CO2 emissions. But nonetheless, identifying Irish seafood as a low carbon food increases its attractiveness to customers when taken alongside the proven health benefits that seafood has. Which brings me back to the issue of rising energy costs. While it is good to see a stabilisation of energy prices, it is clear that the seafood sector, like other sectors, must reduce its reliance on fossil fuels. As noted in the European Commission's recent communication on the energy transition of the seafood sector, a significant share of EU fisheries and aquaculture businesses are energy intensive, and they rely heavily on fossil fuels. This is driven by the recent energy crisis and the objective on climate neutrality under the Green Deal. The initiative proposes two main changes for the sector. The first is an increase in energy efficiency, and this includes a decrease in fuel use intensity and also overall fuel consumption reduction in the short to medium term. The second is a switch from fossil fuels to renewable and also to zero or low carbon energy sources and fuels. The Commission proposes actions to reach these changes and achieve these changes, including improving coordination between stakeholders with the establishment of an energy transition partnership for fisheries and aquaculture, support also of further research and innovation on energy efficiency in the sector, developing skills in the sector to help adapt to energy transition, and also then improving the business environment and financing opportunities. Ireland welcomes this initiative and the steps to a more energy efficient sector, and it will require a collective effort from all stakeholders to meet this challenge and ensure economic viability in the years to come. I look forward to this morning's presentation and very much so to the panel discussion with industry. And I'm sure you will all gain much information from the discussion this morning with the panel. Thank you, and a pleasure to join you.
Thank you, Minister. I think that gives a very good backdrop to our presentation this morning. So now I'll move on to our CEO, Caroline Bocquel, who will provide an overview of the Business of Seafood report for 2022. So Caroline, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dominic. I'm delighted to share the findings of this report this morning. It's a really important document, as the Minister has said, in terms of giving a showcase for the sector, where we have been in 2022 and where we are likely to go in 2023. The first keynote is that the sector has grown, as the Minister has noted, again in 2022. It's a relatively modest growth of 4%, but it's extremely important given the three significant shocks that the sector has had. It is still dealing with the huge complexity and uncertainty arising from Brexit. It has had to deal with COVID, as all other sectors have, and as the Minister has said, the huge challenges of the Ukraine, particularly in relation to the energy crisis. But generally, as a sector, it has proven to be yet again extremely resilient. We still have maintained all of the key pillars of the sector, and it continues to grow year on year. The sector has grown over 4% this year, and that has largely come as a result of growth in domestic consumption. That domestic consumption has gone up quite significantly by 13%, with a large part of that coming from the reopening of the food service sector in 2022. And this has also been driven by at historic highs of our exports. Employment in the sector has reduced a little bit by 8%. but it still remains a very important employment category, particularly in the coastal communities, where a large number of employees in coastal businesses are employed by the seafood sector. As the Minister again has said, in the north is the highest at 14% of employees in coastal communities are employed by the seafood sector. This is a really important sector for us, and it's incredibly important as we go forward and look with the funding coming from the Brexit Adjustment Reserve that we continue to fund employment in these coastal communities. The labour force study, which was published recently by BIM, has shown some really interesting statistics for the sector. 70% of pelagic crew are employed under PAYE system. However, the vast majority of employees in the sector are employed under a share system. This is generally regarded as being a preferred method of employment for people in the fishing sector. It is seen as being advantageous to them with more flexibility and more control. However, the welfare benefits and the access to welfare entitlements of the PAYE system are also extremely important to people. So there's been a number of recommendations coming from this labour force study, which we're in the process of implementing through a skills strategy. The key recommendations of this report is the importance of attracting new entrants into the seafood sector, as well as developing meaningful career paths for those who are within the sector. This is something that we'll be publishing a strategy on over the coming weeks. There's two other key areas within the sector that I wanted to touch on. The first one is the importance of the seafood tech sector. We'll look at that shortly in a moment, but that continues to grow. 3% by value in 2021, relatively small, but it is continuing to grow year on year, and it is making a significant impact in the value added end of the sector in terms of getting more from the sector. The fish processing sector contracted by 9% in 2021 in terms of value and 12% in terms of employment. In terms of where our seafood is coming from, the volume of seafood has decreased by 15%. This is a trend that we're seeing right across all components of the sector, that the volume of seafood that we are catching and processing is declining. Part of this is as a result of Brexit and the reduction in quotas. But what this is being made up for is in the increase in value. So this higher value increase and the higher prices coming from the market have led to an overall increase of 13% by value. These are coming from a range of areas, and what we're seeing is that the ports of Clorhead, Howth and Greencastle are seeing increases in landings, and although in other ports the landings are decreasing by volume, they too are increasing by value. Strong price increases across the sector, particularly in prawns and hake. In the aquaculture sector, we're seeing relatively steady volumes in terms of production, with salmon and rope mussels increasing by just 1%, but we're seeing very strong prices for our Irish organic salmon, 13% price increases. In oysters, we're seeing 8% increase by value, and rope mussels 7%. So the aquaculture sector performing very strongly in 2021. In terms of the consumption, we continue to enjoy salmon. It is the top selling species in Ireland by value for many years, and is continuing to be the case. Very high demand for salmon, and that has, again, it has grown by value in 2022. So very strong performance there. A lot of this coming again from that increase in the hospitality sector. We're seeing a very strong rebound. We're not quite at pre-COVID levels yet, but certainly very, very close to that. The strong price increase in salmon has led to a reduction overall in the volumes being, or in the value being sold because of that higher level price. But we are seeing price increases in cod, haddock and hake. the processing companies, the number of processing companies we have in Ireland is holding steady at just over 100. And there is a really important transition underway with our processing companies, which commenced in 2022 and is going into 2023. And that is the investment that they are making in their innovation and also in automation of their processes through the Brexit Adjustment Reserve. This reserve is providing up to 50% funding for innovative processes, and we are seeing processors avail of this in unprecedented levels. So what we are seeing is a strong move away from just volume processing, where we're processing goods or seafood product just as a commodity, into processing it as a value-added product, where processors are now looking to the export markets and looking to really place the product there as a ready to eat or in a consumer ready format, and thereby getting much higher prices for their products. So we are seeing this come through strongly in the processing sector, and many of these companies involved heavily at the moment in installing significant new value-added processing lines, and in some cases new plants and factories. And we would expect to see further increase in this area next year. The aquatech sector is an important one that I mentioned earlier. Although we're seeing relatively small increase here, the number of companies active in this space is very significant. Most of these are active in the biosciences space, and they're looking at the significant nutrition and health benefits that can be and are being derived from seafood, to ensure that we're optimizing these and maximizing these, and ensuring that companies are taking full advantage of this, and that all of this, the functionality of this food is being fully availed of. The aquatech companies that we are profiling here these are companies that are involved in high value adding techniques and processes using seafood. So they're high-tech companies that are providing business support, professional and port services. BIM is supporting this sector and these companies for the last 4 years through our innovation studio, and will continue to do so in 2023. In terms of our imports and exports, we can see that our exports increased by value last year. It decreased slightly by volume by 13%. We know that the export market to the UK continues to fall, both imports and exports to the UK, but we are increasing our exports to the EU of 4% by value in 2022. And a lot of this directed at a new market that we're targeting, which is the Italian market, which is performing strongly. In relation to the rest of the world, the Asia market, the exports to the Asia market doubled in value last year. Those gains have been held and continues to be held at that level. And the significant increase seen of 38% to the Middle East. We are seeing imports of cheaper fish, which are signaling price switching behavior in the retail market. But we are also continuing to see those exports generally and imports increasing by 4% and 8% respectively. Export volumes are down to all markets except those markets I mentioned in the Middle East and the rest of the world. And the value of salmon exports are down 2% due to increasing competition in the organic salmon market. The fleet performance has been strong this year. We've seen a significant increase in the price of prawns. The highest increase of all of the species landed by the Irish fleet, a 24% price increase in prawns. That is due partially to the superior nature of the seafood that we are producing here, and we're continuing to target export market for this premium product. Mackerel declined by 14% in volume last year, but the value increased by 10% due to a 27% increase in price. The landings of crab by the Irish fleet remain stable in volume, but also increased in 19% by value. the price of fuel was extremely challenging for the sector last year, not only for the fleet, obviously highly reliant on the price of fuel, but also for the operating costs of companies, which has been tremendously challenging. The price of a barrel of oil increased 42% in 2022, and prices to the fishing sector grew by up to 100%, which we saw in Killybegs, while the petrol pump prices increased by 22%, which had a huge impact on the processing companies. As the Minister mentioned, the carbon footprint of Irish seafood is extremely low. Our recent carbon footprint report reports that it is a low carbon food source, which is generating less than 2% of the total Irish agri-food greenhouse gas emissions. This is a huge natural advantage that the seafood sector has, that we will continue to take advantage of in terms of how we are branding and promoting our fabulous product going into 2023 and beyond. We are looking at seeing how to get some of our companies to zero carbon, which we believe that we can do in 2023. And these will be really important opportunities and pilots for us, again, to profile the sustainable nature of the sector and how the seafood is not only nutritious, healthy and good for you, but it is also good for the environment. And then very finally, our overall conclusions, strong price increases in the market. We are seeing a fall in the volumes of seafood, but we are seeing a strong price increase, particularly 9% for salmon and 7% for cod. However, the cost of fuel continues to be very challenging for the sector, but these have been counterbalanced by the positive changes that we are seeing with the food service sector positively rebounding, and the significant investments that are being made through the EU-funded Brexit Adjustment Reserve, which is helping companies to restructure post-Brexit. It is helping put significant innovation into the sector so that we can really take advantage of the added value available to the market to get and to continue to command those higher prices for what are a premium product in our seafood. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Caroline. Sorry. Thank you, Caroline, for that overview. And I think that puts the report into perspective. We'll now have a discussion with our three panelists. The first panelist we have is Ciaran Doherty, who's owner of the fishing vessel Áine, a 57-metre pelagic trawler from Killybegs, fishing primarily for mackerel, blue whiting, horse mackerel. So, Ciaran, just to start with, this is 2022 was the second year after Brexit and the second year of seeing quota reductions under the Trade and Cooperation Agreement with the UK. Are these reductions now starting to bite on your business? And in 2022, were there any sort of offsets or any offsets you see in the future that will help you to mitigate against these quota reductions going forward?
Yeah, good morning, everybody, and Dominic. We seen them. We didn't have to wait till the second year, to be quite honest. I mean, in the first year, Christmas, when the Brexit deal was thrown out in front of us, we kind of knew straight away, just putting pen to paper, what it was going to be, the impacts on us. We knew beforehand if it went wrong, it was going to go very wrong. And that's what transpired. We didn't have to wait to the second year. We know what we've lost because our authorizations give out the quantities of quota we get, so we're able to quantify it very quickly. And we could see on paper, just on the market value in that given year, what we were losing directly. And that's what transpired in the first year. And then the second year, we actually lost more because we'll be losing quota right up till 2026. And that's the mackerel was the main fishery we had, and we've lost over 20,000 tonnes of mackerel, which is somewhere around 25 or 26% of our overall mackerel quota. And it's just interesting, when Caroline was just giving her presentation there, and she was given the the facts and figures on the pelagic end of things, when she said the volume had gone down, but the value had gone up, and that it was a net loss overall of 4%. That's the saddening part about it. It shouldn't be a 4% loss. It should be actually a 27% increase. And that's the problem in Irish fisheries. We're not getting any of the increases when these price increases come around. Price increases, as we know as fishermen, they always come up and down. They're never flat line. It's the ups and downs of the fishing, we call it. But it's always good if you're getting these ups, but we're not seeing the upside of it, because all it's doing is filling the holes on what we've lost out of the Brexit deal and other things that's happened us in the last 12 years. Coming from a pelagic point of view, you know, I've seen in the North Atlantic, all these other coastal states just smash and grab, and it's been well documented in what they're doing, with no prehistoric track record, and it's having a direct result in Ireland. So today, yes, price is good. We have a wonderful product. We all know that. But the problem is we're not getting the uplift, and we're not getting the uplift because of what we've lost. If science goes down, everybody goes down together, but this isn't science. This quota didn't go down on science. This quota went down politically, and that's where we have lost. And as regards an offset, we haven't really seen anything really to offset what we've lost. We're still waiting on the bar funding. I mean, it's been documented and even stated by the minister that the RSW sector was the most hard hit out of the Brexit TAC, and yet now we're the only sector that hasn't received a penny. We're still waiting, and we hope it'll be processed. But people have to understand that we're never going to get back through a Brexit adjustment fund what we've lost, because we've lost it forever. Unless we get some burden sharing, and that's been dealt with now in the CFP, which is a report at the moment, but we need it to become a review, because otherwise it's only a status quo for the other European fishing nations. They get to keep what they have, and we are still the poor relation. So we have to get some changes there. The bar funding, the minister went on to say that 268 million was allocated to capital projects, and that's very welcome, that people can get new processing plants or new lines or whatever to try and get new markets. That's welcome. But as I go back to say, a sector like ourselves in the pelagic that has received nothing, we need to get something to protect our capital investment that the owners have made over the last 20 years. And it really needs to come sooner than later. We've been waiting for over 2 years. And I feel that the minister, it's going to be a political decision. The minister has to make a decision on it, and he has to make it as soon as possible.
Thanks, Ciaran. I mean, that paints a very, it does paint a little bit of a bleak picture. And just maybe to add to the bleakness, last year we saw the huge fuel price increase, from the result of the conflict in Ukraine. What I would say is our own sort of analysis we did of the carbon footprint shows that your own fleets, the RSW boats, have very, very low CO2 emissions. But allowing for this and the fact that, your own vessel is a relatively new vessel, are there improvements you think you can make to reduce your carbon footprint further in the pelagic sector?
Yeah, well, I mean, BIM has actually produced the Neptunus project, and it just highlights the low carbon footprint we have as a sector, and it'll be rolled out to the other sectors in the Irish fishing industry. And I think it's something that we should be shouting from the rooftops. I mean, that we can produce the product and put it on the shelves of the consumers and supermarkets around the world, and the carbon footprint speaks for itself. I mean, it's way ahead of any other industry, and we've got to highlight it more so that the people, when they're eating a sustainable food product that's been caught by Irish fishing vessels, have the beauty that they know that it's sustainable, number one, and number two, that it's got a low carbon footprint. And that's very important in the climate that we live in now. And I'd like to see some more acknowledgement from some of the NGOs on that, because it's a fact, and it's the nature of the fishery we do. And it's not like other industries where they have to grow the product. I mean, following the science, the product gets to grow out in the western seaboard, and we just go out and we hunt it and we catch it and we deliver it to the quayside. So it's but on the fuel, it still costs money to go out there and catch it. And as everybody knows, and the minister alluded to in his presentation, fishing is a high intensity on fuel, but it has on the consumption of fuel, but it has to be taken in the round for the amount of tons of fish is taken in, even though it might be a lot of fuel. When it's broken down, that's why our carbon footprint is so small. And but we do need support on the fuel subsidy. And I mean, the effect, you see the effect on the fishing industry with the quota loss and Brexit, where we lost a quarter of our earnings, and that goes for the guys in Greencastle, they've lost Rockall that was lost out of the Brexit, and the prawn fishermen, and everything's been buffered just on the price increase. But on the fuel subsidy, it's really important that we get it. Other nations have got it. We need to have a playing field. And as regards my own business, it's put our fuel cost on a yearly basis. It's doubled it. So, and then the crew get their wages after the fuel's deducted. So on average, just on the top of my head, I would say it's costing every crewman on my vessel €7,000 or €8,000 per year. So it's affecting everybody. So if the crew's affected, it's less spending power they have, sure to spend money in the local community. So it affects everybody. And people say every industry's affected by the fuel, and that's correct. But the problem is with the fishing is we have to use a lot of fuel to catch the fish, but then we also had with the high fuel costs with the haulage firms and everything that is to transport the fish. So it's a double whammy for the fishing industry.
Thanks, Ciaran. I think that's you give some good insights there of the challenges being faced by the catching sector over the last few years. I'll move on now to Elsa Kelly, who's the Markets and Sales Manager for Wild Atlantic Oysters, based in Sligo Bay. So Elsa, you're very, very welcome.
Thank you.
Maybe you can just explain a little bit about Wild Atlantic Oysters, because I think it's quite a unique sort of business model that you have.
Yeah, basically we represent two growers in Sligo who are operating out of Drumcliff Bay. We export to Asia mainly, with 10% of our sales going to Europe. But we are very unique because we have a hatchery on site which grows our product from nursery to maturity. So we're unique in that sense. But yeah.
Yeah, and the last couple of years have really shown a big increase in the kind of value of Irish oysters. And we saw big increases in 2021 and again in 2022. What are the prospects looking like for 2023? Are we still things looking positive? Is the market still strong?
Yeah, well, so I'd like to say there's over 130 oyster farms in Ireland, and we're all producing like high premium quality product. Irish oysters are probably the best oysters in the world, and it's great to see them getting the recognition that they deserve. However, we're not really completely there yet. 2021 and 2022 saw obviously COVID, but it also saw huge mortalities in France due to extreme temperatures. This led to increased demand in bulk sales from Ireland to France, which naturally brought up the price of Irish oysters. So France is the largest exporter in the world, and we're not far behind them. But while the French market was in recovery, we'll see probably bulk sales decrease in quantity and in price from Ireland. So this might have an impact this year. So we'll just have to wait and see for that. But prospects for 2023, I think we need to try and move away from bulk sales due to the oysters being rebranded and not being recognised as Irish. So, for example, 90% of Wild Atlantic Oysters product is being exported to Asia, but it's being sold as Irish, and it has our own branding on it. But in the European market, it's not the same. So I'd like to see that perhaps change, and for Irish oysters to be recognised over there. But in saying that, Asia is probably not the most sustainable market due to the fossil fuel usage and flights and all that. So we need to be probably thinking about moving closer to home, to the European and domestic markets for 2023.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, and the last point you make there around the carbon footprint. I mean, your business model is kind of geared a little bit up to the export markets. But did you suffer from the energy crisis last year, just in terms of getting product to market?
Yeah, the energy crisis was extremely challenging. For us, as I mentioned before, we have a hatchery on site which uses extreme amounts of energy to keep it heated. We also have depuration tanks which are running probably non-stop because especially during the winter, because of norovirus and stuff, we need to have them on all the time, and we need to be having longer cycles for depuration. So we are probably, so the energy prices force us to increase our prices for our customers. And then we were using tractor fuel and a lot of other energy. So we probably, as I said before, we probably need to think about a more sustainable way of exporting, which means moving closer to home, raising awareness of our product and the quality of our product in the domestic market and in the European market, and branding it as Irish, because we have the best product in the world. The air freight prices increased in 2021 and 22, and we had to actually stop exporting to China for half of the year. So that had a huge impact on us. And they're probably just coming back to normal now. So it had an impact on our customers, it had an impact on us, and we did have to raise the price. And that means, as Ciaran was talking about earlier on, it has an impact across the whole company, on wages, on everybody, So, and we also need to think about biodiversity and sustainability. And I think that's the most important factor for 2023, and moving our market closer to home.
Thanks, Elsa. And I think, as Ciaran said, and as you said yourself, we have a unique selling point in seafood in the kind of low carbon footprint. And I think you're right in trying to promote that, to increase our competitiveness is absolutely vital going forward. I'll move quickly on to Colm Lynch, who's the Chief Operating Officer for Aquamonitrix. Colm, you're very welcome. Can you tell us a little bit about your business and how you came up with the idea and maybe the technology that you're kind of using there?
Yeah, sure, Dominic. Just say I'm conscious that an awful lot of people won't be aware of who Aquamonitrix are, so we're relatively new to this space, and coming at it from a different direction to Ciaran and Elsa are. Aquamonitrix is a spin-out company from a company called T Laboratories in Carlow, who have a history of analysis predominantly in the oil and water industry. So we developed a technology, and our first product out is part of a suite of nutrient monitors. So we're measuring nitrate and nitrite in our first product offering. And of course, this wasn't targeted at the aquaculture industry, but we were given the opportunity to test the value proposition of this product within the aquaculture and fisheries industry through the innovation hubs of BIM, and particularly Richard Donnelly and Damien Toner and Catherine Bocquel, who ran the Hatch Accelerator in conjunction with Niall O'Reilly. And we went through that last year, and it offered us an opportunity to learn about aquaculture, because again, we're not coming from this industry. We're a tech company looking and moving into a different space. And within that platform, we were given the chance to see how do RAS systems work, and what is the value of the data that we produce in terms of managing those systems and preventing things that obviously everybody wants to mitigate against, such as mortality events, fish health, and developing data for real-time control within these systems. So, to put it in a nutshell, what came out of the Hatch Accelerator was that if you've got healthy water, you've got healthy fish, and we're delivering a data point which will tell you the quality of your water in real time. And again, following on from that, BIM have been really, really important in terms of leveraging their network, and how do you get a company such as ours, who are not traditional in this industry, to the end user. So we have now reached out to the four corners of the earth, from the Nordics to Canada to Tasmania, recently in the Netherlands in terms of sale, leveraging the network out of BIM in terms of rolling our technology out and the solution to those particular areas.
And just, I mean, just building from that point, you know, do you see the aquaculture sector as an important part of your business now, and do you see a lot of room for expansion there, particularly globally and in Ireland?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd say, to answer the question first, globally, I think there's a really big opportunity. At the moment, there's probably about 5 to 10% of our business is related to the aquaculture industry, which is relatively small. But I think that there is an opportunity to ramp that up to 25 to 30% of what we're doing based on what the feedback we're getting from the marketplace. The biggest challenge that we have is, how do you sell to a global market without a global sales force? And, you know, so literally every corner of the earth is looking at aquaculture, and really these RAS systems is the key area that we're focusing in on. And the other areas that we operate in is predominantly the wastewater and drinking water industry. And that is a very mature industry with a distributor network with, you know, so well established. That distributor and channel partner network is not available for the aquaculture industry, which is relatively new vis-a-vis wastewater. So what we have to do is go out and establish that network and get people at local localities who can both do the sales, after sales, and servicing of the equipment after the event. So that's a big challenge for us to ramp up our sales into the overall global market. Within Ireland, I see it as a smaller opportunity at the moment because the levels of activity within the RAS industry is relatively small versus the global sector. But hopefully we'll see an increase on that. I know that there's planning issues surrounding some things, and again, from a technical perspective, I stay well away from that sort of thing, and we're here to deliver data. But again, I'd say the other big challenge that we have is establishing a brand. So we're a new company with a new product in a new industry. And that is something that is going to take time to make sure we get traction in the marketplace. We have to build upon the networks that BIM are providing with continued support. We have sales to some really key industry leaders, and as well as the world of academia, who are taking on board what we're doing and writing papers about it. So I think to answer your question short, there is a huge opportunity for our technology within the aquaculture industry, but there's a lot of work to get done to get that expanded to up to that 25-30% mark that we'd like to hit.
Thanks, Colm. It's a really interesting story, and it's quite an exciting business, as you say. It's a new industry and a new place and a new market, and you know, that brings its own challenges, but also its own opportunities as well. So, okay. I'd like to thank our three panelists for their time. I think that they've all given us a really, really interesting insights into the ups and downs of the seafood sector and the ancillary support services around that. And certainly the seafood sector isn't without its challenges. We all know that, and we are well aware of all those challenges. But I think once again, the business of seafood does sound a semi-positive note in that it's not all bad. So with that, I'd like to thank everybody and thank everybody for listening and taking the time to listen in this morning. Thank you very much.